What is going on, everybody? Quancredible here, and today we're going to touch back on a theory I had in my chapter 45 video talking about Sin and Arthur's relationship and Sin potentially being from Camelot. Now, one disclaimer about this video is this theory operates under the entire notion that Lancelot is Sin. So if you aren't one of those people that believe Lancelot is Sin, I highly suggest you guys watch the rest of this video, because some things that happen or some similarities between four knights and the actual Arthurian legend may actually lead you or sway you to believe that Lancelot is Sin when you hear this whole thing. So just hear me out. Also, if you need more reasoning on why Lancelot is Sin, I did make a video about it previously in my Who is Sin video, where I break down kind of some other options of who Sin could be, as well as go over why I think is Lancelot. So if you want to check that video out first, you totally can. So again, this whole theory under the premise that Lancelot is Sin. So if you actually look at Arthurian legend, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm some big Arthurian scholar, I have done research on it, and while there are many different interpretations of the Arthurian legend, because there are many different writers who have interpreted in their own different ways, there are lots of themes or reoccurring things that happen in the overall story that we can draw from, such as Lancelot being taken by the Lady of the Lake, his parents being Bon and Elaine, not even just in Seven Deadly Sins, but this is the actual lore. Those were his actual parents. And the Lady of the Lake delivering Lancelot to Camelot, that is something that happens in the actual lore. Lancelot being one of the most skillful knights of Arthur's round table, and Arthur and Lancelot being really close, being like dang near best friends. This is all a big thing in the lore until they did have their falling out. If you do not know, Arthur had a wife, Guinevere. Lancelot had an affair with Guinevere, so that led to Lancelot leaving Camelot. Now, how does this all translate over to Four Knights of Apocalypse, or how does it translate over to Sin? Now, if we're operating under the tense that Lancelot is Sin, if you read the Lancelot one-shot, which if you haven't, I highly suggest you go read it, because you're missing out on some crucial information, and it's just a good read just to see, like, Bon and Elaine, post Seven Deadly Sins story interact with a kid. Definitely go check it out. But now, if you read the Lancelot one-shot, you would know what happened to him at the very end of it, being that he was taken by the Lady of the Lake, or what I would assume, or many would assume, to be the Lady of the Lake. And if Nakaba is following anything closely to what the actual lore of Lancelot would be, is that he probably trained, or was more or less continued the rest of his life, not the rest of it, but kind of like the rest of his teen years, or some of his teen years, training, learning, and becoming a powerful fighter, or just learning things at the actual lake, or from the Lady of the Lake, however he wants to do it, before the Lady of the Lake delivers him to Arthur. Not necessarily delivers, but basically introduces or gives him to Arthur, or however Nakaba would want to do it, because that's one of the things that does happen in a lot of the depictions of the story of King Arthur, is that the Lady of the Lake does give or bring Lancelot to Arthur. And Lancelot, being a powerful fighter, being a very skillful fighter, does eventually end up being Arthur's first knight and one of his closest friends. And I see no reason why Nakaba potentially wouldn't follow this exact same thing. It might be a little bit different, because in Seven Deadly Sins there would be a pretty sizable age gap between Arthur and Lancelot. However, even if you don't want to take it as friends, you could even take it as more of they could either be friends or more of like a student mentor kind of role, whereas Lancelot could have many mentors in the Seven Deadly Sins verse. If you look at him learning things from Bon, Jericho, the Lake, and then Arthur, and whoever else he could learn from when he went to Camelot, I would just think it would just make a lot of sense. So with Lancelot being Arthur's first knight, it would make a lot of sense for in Four Knights of Apocalypse that Lancelot would also be Arthur's first knight in this actual story, which would mean that he would have been there for essentially the creation of a lot of the things that Arthur has now. He would have been there. He would have known. He would have kind of seen more of Arthur's descent into where he is now, and kind of like he would know a lot of these things since he was there first. Now, as for why Lancelot would be stuck in this fox form that we know as Sin, it's kind of up in the air. It could be seen as a lot of different things depending on how Nakaba would want to go, because like I said earlier, in the actual Arthurian lore, Lancelot and Arthur had a falling out over Guinevere. That Lancelot had an affair with Arthur's wife, so that was basically the cause of their separation, of their friendship. However, seeing as how young Lancelot would be, and seeing as Arthur is searching for a bride, I find that very unlikely that was the case, unless you want to take it as that woman that we seen in Sin's dream a couple chapters back after they left Kent. You could see that as maybe there was a third person involved in Lancelot and Arthur's relationship, and maybe she was possibly the cause of their split, or of their falling out, or you could see it as seeing as how the road Arthur is taking in Four Knights of Apocalypse, seeing as he's more of a human supremacy kind of person. All the races are below humans. Maybe Lancelot didn't necessarily agree with that, and that was the cause of their falling out. I could totally see that happening too. And Arthur, even in the Arthurian lore, didn't want to fight Lancelot all like that, but he had to. People were kind of egging him on to, you know, bring it to that point. So it's like, it's not like Arthur ever really wanted to in the actual lore. So it would make sense that maybe Arthur, seeing it as maybe more of a kindness, was like, you know, I'll just turn into a fox or have someone curse you or something like that, which would make sense for why Lancelot would be trapped in this fox form. It would also make sense why lots of the knights that he has run into from Camelot don't recognize him, because he doesn't look like how he normally would. Or you could take it as maybe Arthur found out that Lancelot was going to be one of the Four Knights of Apocalypse, and then maybe he turned him into that form thinking that would stop the prophecy. I'm not really too vested in that one. I'm more vested in my previous one, that, you know, Arthur's human supremacy didn't like it rubbed Lancelot the wrong way, so they had a falling out over that. I kind of like that one more than this one, with the whole thing of Lancelot being a knight of the apocalypse, so Arthur kind of turned him into a fox. I don't really like that one that much, but it would also make sense. And there's other things the comic can do. That's the thing. I'm not saying this is hard pressed, but I'm just saying if you look at everything that Sin knows and how he's been so involved in the story, or being not necessarily being so involved in sort of being so knowledgeable about Camelot, I feel like he knows way more than just a spy would. It's almost like he lived there or lived through these things, which would just make a lot of sense when you look at the Arthurian lore ties of Arthur and Lancelot and how it would just all fit together so perfectly. Nakaba's not slick. He thinks he has me fooled, but I'm on to him. I feel like I'm really close with this exact theory. So please let me know what you guys think about this down below. And if you were one of the people that didn't think that Lancelot was Sin, did all of this like potentially change your mind at all? Like, did this maybe bring you closer to thinking that Lancelot is Sin, or do you still hold that, you know, he's Bond or potentially a new character or somebody else? I'm really curious to know what those people think. And for the people who are like, you know, who do think Lancelot's Sin, what do you think of this theory? Do you think this is like plausible, or do you think I'm way off? Do you still think he's just a spy or something like that? I'm just curious to kind of see what where we are all at on that. So that being said, make sure you guys like the video, so subscribe to the channel. I've been researching a decent bit of Arthurian lore, so I have a couple more theory videos that are, you know, similar to this one, like some about Percival, some about the Fourth Knight. You know, I just got a bunch of other stuff that I do want to make videos on, so make sure you guys do stay subscribed if you do want to see those. So you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you all in my next video.